Guys, we are going to get straight to this video. This time of year is when lots of these big box stores have all their orchids out. Why? Because they are in full bloom. But lots of people have problems keeping orchids alive. So in this video, I am going to show you how to pick the best orchid, but more importantly, how to keep them alive and thriving. So let's get to it. Okay, so when most people buy orchids and most people look at the blooms, you don't want to look at the blooms. Yes, the blooms is what is attracting you, but you want to get an orchid that is not fully bloomed. This looks very beautiful, but the blooms are all open. That means that this particular orchid is old. You want to go for an orchid that has both open and closed blooms. More importantly, you really want to go with an orchid that has mostly closed blooms. Why? That's because that orchid is newer than the ones that have all fully bloomed. I don't understand why a lot of these big box stores sell these blue orchids. Let me tell you something. Blue orchids are fake. They dye the orchid to be blue. So if you have a striking blue orchid that you want to buy, you want to pass on that, because orchids do not come in the color blue. What will happen is that the blue dye will fade and you will end up with a white orchid. So again, skip the blue orchids unless you want to buy a blue orchid that turns white. How to tell if an orchid is healthy? It's not the blooms, baby. It is the leaves. That's right. It's the leaves. You want to look for an orchid that has sturdy, firm leaves. If you find an orchid that has limpy leaves, that is an orchid that is not healthy. So you want to avoid any orchid that has limpy or curly or wrinkly leaves. The curly or wrinkly leaves orchid means that that orchid has been overwatered. You want to look for an orchid that has firm, sturdy, green leaves. Also, examine the roots. The roots should be nice and green. You see that? That is color of a nice, healthy root. If they are silvery like that, that means that it's just water. You don't want an orchid that looks like that. Right there, you see how old that root is? You want to avoid an orchid like that. You also want to avoid any orchids that have yellowing leaves. That means that orchid's leaves are probably old. So avoid any orchids that have yellowing leaves. You want all the orchids that you buy to have green, healthy leaves. When I'm here at these big box stores, I actually take the orchid out of the pot. You want to know what you are getting. Some of these orchids are about $30. Take the orchid out of the pot. Examine the orchid. Make sure that there's no water in the pot, because sometimes when you go home and you water the orchid, it's already watered. So examine it, take it out of the pot, because it's your money you don't want to waste. Also, when it comes to buying an orchid, you want to get an orchid solo orchid. You do not want to get an orchid that is combined with another plant. Just like roses and cactuses, you would not combine a roses and a cactus together. Orchids have specific needs. We do not want to buy an orchid with another plant, because one of them will end up dying or both of them could end up dying. I go orchid shopping. I always look for orchids that have 2 stems instead of 1. That way I'm getting more bang for my buck. I am getting more blooms. So pro tip here, look for the orchids that have 2 stems like this one. You can go for the ones that have 1 stem, but you'll get more bang for your buck if you go for the ones with 2 stems. You'll get more blooms that will last. Guys, if you are getting any valuable information from this video that you did not know about orchids, do me a favor, smash that like button. Better yet, join the family and subscribe to my channel. I will be having lots more video on how to take care of your orchid. So why is your orchid dying? Why is it losing its blooms? Why does it look so damn funky? I have a video on what you may be doing wrong to your orchid and the number 1 reason why orchids die. You definitely want to check that video out. So you've taken my suggestions on how to buy the best orchid. So what do you do when you get it home? I would not repot, meaning I would not take the orchid and put it in another pot. All you need to do is take it out of the plastic wrapping and place your orchid in a well-lit room that gets indirect sun. Do not place your orchid in a window where the sun is beaming. That will fry your orchid. If you feel that it's necessary to repot, wait for about a month or so you don't stress out the plant. But I would suggest not to repot at all. Repotting can disturb the roots and it can lead to more damage than good. I rarely repot my orchids and they do just fine. If your orchid is losing its blooms and looking really sad, don't throw it out. There is a way to get it thriving again. Check out some helpful tips in the next video. If you know of anyone who is struggling to take care of their orchid or needs a step-by-step way on how to repot them, please share my video with that person. The tips that I've given in this video are very helpful and they will help to keep orchids thriving and healthy. You can see this one is a beautiful one that I have in my hand. I got this one because of the wonderful stripe color, and you can tell when an orchid is healthy from the one that we repotted, because look at the leaves. It's actually standing up, right? And it's stiff. So that's what you want your orchid to be, just like this. Stiff, leaves nice and sturdy, and you can tell that it actually has some buds now growing. And so if you again have a friend who is struggling with making sure that their orchid is healthy, please share this video with them because it will help them a lot. Now, how to tell if your orchid needs watering? Take a look at the roots. It will be silver. If the roots are silver, that means it's time to water. If the roots are dark green, then you don't have to water. So I'm going to demonstrate what I'm talking about. And this will turn dark green. You can see right here, it's already turning because it was a silvery color. And it will become darker. And that's all you need. Just a little bit of spritz, and that's it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here on my channel, The Determined Gardener. I will have lots of tips on how to water your orchid properly, how to fertilize your orchid, and how to keep it blooming very, very long. I have some orchids that I have been able to keep blooming for 4 months. I kid you not. 4 entire months I have been able to keep my orchid blooming. So I am going to share those tips and tricks with you. Keep on watching.